Russia is arguing that a Ukrainian genocide case be dismissed in the International Court of Justice as an abuse of process, as it makes its final arguments against the jurisdiction.
Such inconsistent statements and hypocritical attitudes of the intervening states should have no effect on the interpretation of the Genocide Convention. It is plain that these statements are made for purely political purposes and should not be given any legal value or force in the interpretation of the Genocide Convention.
Kyiv brought the case to the UN's highest court just days after the war broke out, arguing that Moscow twisted the Genocide Convention as an excuse for its invasion in February last year. And Russia has maintained that it intervened to prevent a genocidal attack on ethnic Russians in the Luhansk and Donetsk regions. And for more, we're joined by Dasha Chernyshova. She's live for us in Moscow. Dasha, run us through Russia's latest arguments and what we can expect after today's hearing.
Well, that's right. Moscow has always been maintaining that the court does not have the jurisdiction to look into this matter. We've heard the leader of Moscow's team at the ICJ, Genocide, saying that the case that has been brought up by Kyiv is hopelessly flawed, he said, and is at odds with the long-standing jurisprudence of this court. We also have heard Moscow saying that there are a number of reasons why this case should not be heard and this case should be dismissed. And Moscow has been maintaining that Moscow was at this court not just to listen to the allegations that Ukraine has introduced against Moscow, but to make sure that this court has not the power to rule on any of those alleged violations by the Russian Federation. So we've heard that Moscow said that the court must have an appropriate basis for the jurisprudence consistent with the fundamental principles of the international law and consent. And according to the Russian team, Article 9 of the Genocide Convention does not afford that basis. So that's why Moscow is saying that Ukraine's pleadings relating to Russia's alleged crimes are at odds and should not be related to the Genocide Convention. So the understanding in Russia is that there are 6 main objections why this case should not be listened there, and Moscow is willing to make sure that the court is aware of all of them. At the same time, Moscow was also very willing to make it clear to the international audience and to the judges there that the real cause of what has happened in Ukraine was the actions of Kyiv in 2014 that, according to the Moscow's perspective, have started the actions, the military activities against people in Donbas. So Moscow is saying that the start of the so-called special military operation in Ukraine has nothing to do with this court and with this case. Neither is the recognition of Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republic. So on Wednesday, the hearings will proceed with the ICJ considering Ukraine's final response against Russian objections.
Those deliberations to continue at the ICJ. Dasha, thank you very much for that. Dasha Chernyshova there speaking to us live from Moscow.